Better go. Hi, my name is Ange Snowden and I'm the Woolworths Junior Landcare Grants Manager at Landcare Australia. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today and pay respects to their elders past, present and emerging. If you're tuning in to a Woolworths Junior Landcare Grants webinar before, you will have remembered Sam Harrison, an environmental educator who works closely with us at Junior Landcare, as well as running sustainability projects in schools in Victoria. Sam has helped develop many of the educational resources that you'll find on the Junior Landcare Learning Centre on our website, which is proudly supported by Woolworths. So thanks for joining us today, Sam.
Thanks, Ange, and it's great to be here to talk about the updates to the top 10 Woolworths Junior Landcare projects and how educators can use this resource to help decide on which project to do and how to run it. I've got some examples of a successful grant that we applied for at my school as well too. But I guess we're interested in getting kids out there and getting their hands dirty and having some environmental and learning outcomes along the way. So yeah, looking really forward to talking about this.
Thanks, Sam. Can't wait to hear about it shortly. So just a brief overview on what this session will cover. We're hoping to get you grant ready, ready to apply for your project, and to help you decide what your project will be. Sam will go through some project inspiration in our top 10 project guide. We'll just have a brief chat about what the Junior Landcare grants are, and then dive right into the grant guidelines and criteria and how to really write the best grant application to give your school the best chance of being successful, and with some application advice. So we'll get stuck right into what Junior Landcare and the Woolworths Junior Landcare Grants program is all about. So Junior Landcare has been around, we actually celebrated our 25th anniversary last year, so it's been around since 1998. And it's all about children being empowered and active in caring for the natural environment, getting their hands dirty and involved in Junior Landcare projects. Our Junior Landcare Learning Centre is proudly supported by Woolworths and supports these sort of grant projects. And the Woolworths Junior Landcare grants are in their this is the sixth round, and over $5 million worth of funding has gone out already. So, and that's supporting over 5,000 projects. So we're really excited this year to be delivering the grants again for grants of up to $1,000. And those applications are open now and they're closing on the 15th of March, on Friday the 15th of March. So we're hoping to get you ready for your applications by then. This year, we're focusing on wellbeing and encouraging, as well as encouraging applications from all types of projects, but there'll be especially a focus on wellbeing. So what sort of types of projects that can your group achieve in this, and where do you start? I think we'll throw to Sam to talk about what sort of projects you could do.
Yeah, I guess, that's really great that you got the focus on wellbeing there too, Ange, because that can encompass so much of the learning curriculum, the wellbeing curriculum, the science curriculum as well too, and you can link it as an educator or a teacher to other things as well too, those experiences out in nature. When you're looking at doing a project, and I was talking to my students about this. I was working with a group of grade 3 to 6 students at my school. They were our senior students. I'm like quite a small school. And we did a project called Community Herbs. Now, Community Herbs was all about establishing some planter boxes at the front of the school. And it wasn't just herbs, there were some other vegetables in there as well too. But the idea was it was going to be a focal part of the school where the students would grow the herbs and the vegetables, they tend to them, look after them, and we were sharing them with the community. That's hence the community herbs aspect of it. So what I said to my students was it needs to have a SMART goal around it. So the SMART stands for specific. So it needs to be a specific project. It needs to be measurable. That's the M. Measurable is we can see that we've made an improvement from start to finish. It needs to be realistic. That's the R. then A is achievable, so it needs to be achievable, and then it needs to have a time constraint around it, so that we had a SMART goal for our project. And in some ways, and this is one of the beauties of doing a Woolworths Junior Landcare project, it doesn't have to just specifically focus on one thing when we're working in an environmental thing. It could be across other areas as well too, which is fantastic. And our community herbs, we actually found that it had quite a strong sensory component to it as well too. And I find some of the kids just going up to a piece of mint and smelling it and sharing it with their friends and starting a conversation as well too. So when we look at our next lot of projects, we're actually considering a sensory component to it. And it's very interesting as well too. When I'm writing a curriculum for the term at the moment, I was out in my own garden collecting some herbs about how am I going to run this lesson, because we're focusing on biology as well too in term one. And I grabbed a few herbs out of my garden. Also, I found a little Saunders case moth as well too.
Oh, wow.
So it's not just going to be like when you're out in nature, it's not just going to be looking at the plants or looking at what you're growing. There's also the animals that you might find in, on, and around them as well too. So you're going to have those other learning opportunities as well too there. So in the case of the project that we were successful with, he had the space at the start of the front of the school. We identified that. We identified how we could improve that space. And that's what we applied for in our Woolworths Junior Landcare Grant. We applied for the planter boxes and everything would go in the planter boxes as well too. We didn't use the whole budget either. So that was one of the things that I'm guessing has probably helped us along the way as well too. We were really specific with what we were going to buy, how much it was going to cost. I got the students to get online on a few websites and do some research as well too. So our costings were really specific. And then we put in a project plan as well too, and that included when we were going to have it implemented by and when we were going to have it being able to be evaluated at the end as well too. So the idea of a sensory garden is one of those things that you mentioned, the whole idea of well-being. And it doesn't have to be a sensory garden for a Woolworths Junior Landcare Grant. I guess that's just one suggestion. We have on the Junior Landcare Learning Centre, we have our top 10 grant project ideas as well too. So one is creating a sensory garden. Another one could be a yarning circle. And our yarning circles can have a really huge budget, but they can have a smaller budget as well too, where we're using some more natural materials or being seated on the ground. It's the whole idea of communicating in that circle, acknowledging the traditional custodians and how they've I guess worked together and understood each other over so many years as well too, as well as the environment around that space as well too. Other things could be, for example, a bush tucker garden. So that's also incorporating some of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander studies in there as well too. Creating a food garden was probably where our project best fit. So that's another one of the ideas in the top 10 as well too, creating a food garden. And it did, it was a great little food garden at the front of the school, and it was a nice way for us to engage as a school with our school community as well too, just to put in our letter, our newsletter, hey, we've got heaps of mint at the moment, you know, feel free to grab a bunch or two of mint at collection time after school. Another one is making a wicking bed, and that's a really nice project, and there's a few other scientific ideas in that as well. For example, capillary action in soil, and how plants use water. There's also water conservation as well too. So it's a really nice idea for a project. There's other things, for example, creating a wildlife habitat. One of our possible ideas is we've been doing a little bit of planting of Indigenous plants at the front of the school, so we're maybe considering improving that and creating more of our wildlife habitat at the front. Compost is something that we don't probably do well at our school, so that might be something that we'll get some feedback on our students about, whether we do something along the lines of compost and how we can improve our output of organic waste, because we do tend to collect quite a few fruit peels and that kind of thing at our school. And maybe combined with that or separate to that would be a worm farm as well too. And that would, again, would link to our biological sciences curriculum as well too. Beneficial gardens. The idea of a beneficial garden is that we're creating plants that will attract pollinators, but also those sort of predatory bugs that will help control things like aphids. So if we're planting lots of flowers, we might attract some hoverflies or aphid or ladybugs, which will keep the aphid population down and that sort of thing. So looking at how we can create a balance with a beneficial garden. And finally, a butterfly garden as well. So I haven't quite achieved that with our little herbs here because this is actually
close.
But the idea of a butterfly garden is planting nectar plants. So plants that will produce nectar for the butterflies. Butterflies need to drink nectar. So there's a variety of plants that they're specifically attracted to. But also things like their host plants as well too. So a host plant is the type of plant that a caterpillar will need. So they can't just go on to any particular leaf to eat. It's not quite like in the Very Hungry Caterpillar book. They need a really specific plant to eat. So it's putting in the specific plants for your area for your butterflies as well too. So a butterfly garden is a nice one to do as well too. And it's also, again, specific. It's a butterfly garden. It's measurable. We can see if we can do a survey to see if we have many butterflies around and if we are getting more butterflies by the time the project's ended as well too. And it's achievable as well too within a space. So I think within a school, it's the space you've got, it's your need within the school. It's also the priorities of the school as well too. And when we do one of these projects, it's, I think, really important not to just be the only person who's involved in the project as one of the teachers, is to get other teachers and other classes involved as well too. So you're transferring that ownership to others, and then you'll get assistance when it comes time at the end. I'm sure you'll talk about this too, Ange, about when it's time to do the acquittal as well too, to say how much you've spent and everything like that. It's great to be able to get that support from everybody else to do those final reports as well.
Yeah, so and the great thing about these, so if any of those project ideas that Sam sort of run through sound like something that you'd like to do at your school, but you're sort of thinking, well, that's great, but I've got no idea how to compost. I don't know where to start. These projects ideas, it listed in there, they've all got curriculum links to early learning framework and curriculum framework for schools. So they're easy to sort of pick up, run through and go, you could have a look at a few, go, oh, that one will work for me. That one may be too hard. Maybe next year, once we've got the first project or a few more people involved in the first project, we can tackle the next thing. But they're a good place to start, particularly if, you need a little bit more assistance to get it going.
Yeah, and on the Junior Landcare Learning Centre, that's where all of those projects are, or those learning activities are. And they're great supports as well too for you during that implementing your project as well. So it provides an idea of the resources that you'll need and a step-by-step process of how to actually go about it as well.
Yeah, great. And I guess as you've sort of touched on, the fact that these projects really need to sort of finish up within the school year. So the reporting happens in November for the project. So it's also, when you're talking about realistic in your SMART sort of goals, that making sure it's something that it is achievable within your school year. So sort of thinking about that when you're applying as well.
Yeah, so I guess once we've decided what we're going to do, we've had a look at the activities, we've been through the top 10, we've, I guess, worked with other people within our school and worked out the priorities, your students as well too. What do we do next?
Yeah, so sort of applying for the grant is probably the next step. So I'll quickly go through the guidelines and criteria. So that is really the greatest resource for trying to shape your grant application to be the strongest as possible, to meet the guidelines and to be able to get a successful application. So we've got our, as well as those sort of sensory, this focus of the wellbeing project, we've got our 4 focus areas for the projects being food production, First Nations perspectives, recycling and improving waste management practices, and biodiversity. So really any environmental project that you're wanting to do at your school should fit within those 4 focus areas. And there's more information in the guidelines about how your project can sort of fit with them. And the key items that really make your project sing will be the environmental outcomes and the educational outcomes. And I'll go through that shortly in how we mark the grants. But the other things to note is that the applications open on the 15th of March. It'll take a little while for us to mark the applications.
So was that open or close?
Close, sorry, on
yep.
the 15th of March. Sorry about that. Yeah. So they're closed on the 15th of March. And the project recipients will be announced in May. And then the reporting will need to be done by November. So you sort of have the second, third, and a bit of the fourth term to sort of do your project. And yeah, one of the key things probably for the grant applications is the budget. So making sure that the focus of your project is having kids having hands-on learning. So then the budget also sort of needs to reflect that. So you'll notice that there's sort of a limit on project infrastructure or large equipment items. So we don't want a grant application that's just $1,000 for a shed. And while that might be really important for your garden, for us, we're not seeing the hands-on children being involved in just a shed installation. So you can obviously install a shed, but just up to, flying through it all. Just up to $500 of the $1,000 can be for project infrastructure, and then other items, plants, seedlings, soil, all that sort of stuff where kids are using the plants and seeing them grow and that sort of thing. That's all sort of unlimited within the grant funding. So I'll just quickly flip through to the assessment criteria. So each application that's submitted is read and marked by the Landcare Australia Assessment Committee. So the assessment criteria is outlined in the grant guidelines. And as you can see here, there's ways the guidelines show the criteria and then how you'll meet that criteria. So we're interested in the expected environmental outcomes. So how will your project impact on the natural environment or the environment at your school? How will your recycling project improve the amount of waste that your school is recycling or producing? The educational outcomes, and that's the really key one. So we're wanting to know, how are students getting involved in the project and what will they be learning from this project? The level of hands-on student engagement. So we love to see that the students are involved in, like you were saying, searching what their budget will be, looking for how much plants cost from the application phase, obviously through into the actual project where they're really involved in the planting or the selecting of plants, involved in watching the plants grow, whether there's a maths class and taking measurements, that's really embedded in their learning, as well as the broader school community. Like you're saying with your project, sounds great that you've got it at the front of the school and inviting parents to take some of the plants home, or even maybe whether it's just saying, we've got mint, has anybody picked a leaf and smelt it? I mean, some parents might never have done that themselves either. So that's a great way of involving the community as well, and just making sure that the project's feasible for your school. So have you consulted with your principal that that bit of land, yes, that's tick for a veggie garden, or it's tick for a composting station, something like that, and that there's commitment from the person who's applying, but also the broader school community to the project. So it is really important that you've got a sort of project committee for the grant, so that it's not just on one person to try and push forward, but there's really a big involvement, and there's more than one person, I guess, that it falls on, which is always great.
Yeah, that's what I found really helpful for me this term, or this last year, sorry, that project, especially because, you know, I work part-time at my school as well too, as a specialist. So having the broader teaching staff and a couple of classes involved in the project really helped for me to manage the project, and it wasn't just, and it helps also to get the students more involved as well too, because it's not just my project. You know, it's not all about me.
Sam will water it, he'll look after it.
Exactly. No, once the students have the ownership over it, then they care about it, and they'll look after it, and they'll water it and everything as well too.
Yeah, great. And the last point is sort of a detailed and realistic budget. So we've just got a bit of an example of a budget. So you don't have to list every single seed packet that you're wanting to buy in the budget, but being really detailed about, yes, we're going to get 15 packets of seeds and we're thinking of getting these sort of ones, and we've looked at we've been to the shop and we know that it costs $4.50 for a packet, so that when you do actually receive the grant, you don't go, oh, we said we'd put seeds in, but we only put $20 in for seeds, and it's actually $70 worth of seeds. So the more detailed in your application, I guess the stronger your application is, in the fact that we know you'll be able to just implement it, but it also makes it easier for you to be able to pick up your application again and go, oh, that's right, we're buying this, this, and this, done.
Yeah.
So having that detail helps, I guess, with us marking your application to have confidence in your project, and it also helps you when you are successful to just sort of proceed. Or even if Sam, you've applied but you pass it on to somebody else at the school to purchase everything, well, they've got the whole budget, they know what they need to buy for the project.
And that's it as well too. And when we did our acquittal as well too, the business manager was able to look through the receipts and compare it as well to our budget and go, oh, okay, we've done this, this, and this, and that made her job really easy as well too.
Perfect. Yeah, so it helps everyone, I guess, to have to go into a bit of detail about what you'll use the money for, and with the real focus on tools and equipment and materials for your project, where the students are going to get their hands dirty and get stuck into the project. So so that's the budget. And then how to apply. So our applications are submitted online through the Smarty Grants portal. So if you've submitted an application before with the Woolworths Junior Landcare Grant, it's the same process, pretty much the same application form. And if you haven't, it's really easy to sign up, create a user. We do recommend that if you're a school or well, you will all be schools or early learning centres, but to use like the reception email or something like that, so that you're not the only person that has access to that email. So it might help if you do have access to that, to start it up as a bit of an organisational Smarty Grants account. And then if you move on or aren't available, someone else can pick up the grant acquittal process. And I guess the key things that you need to know when you are applying is that you need a photo to attach to the form. If possible, one that's got some students involved in the picture, and then that will go, if you're successful, that photo will go up onto a project map with all the other successful Woolworths Junior Landcare Grant recipients. So yeah, if you've got a photo of the kids outside in the space that you're going to be using, that's a great photo to upload. Obviously you need their permission to do that as well. And then must be in a primary school or an early learning centre. If you're, say, a school parent committee or something like that, fortunately the committee can't apply, but you can encourage and work with your school to apply with the school as the primary applicant. you'll need 2 key contacts. So whoever's applying and a secondary contact, as well as the principal's contact details and their endorsement for the project. So we want to know that, yeah, everyone's really on board with the project. And a short overview of your project that you'll write up will also be published on that project map along with your picture, as well as the budget that we've sort of just gone through. The other bits that the application form will ask about the activities that you're undertaking, how the students are involved, and the educational and environmental outcomes. And before you even if you're just interested in having a look at the form, you can download a copy of the form before you start logging in and submitting, or you can start the application, log out and finish it later, and download a copy as you go. So the email address that you apply with will be the email address that all the sort of communications about the grant go to after that.
Yeah, and I can confirm that it's quite easy to apply, and it's there's the funding came through, and it was for our project. The acquittal process wasn't difficult or anything like that, and we got the kids. When we did our acquittal and our report at the end, we had the students around the table. We were helping them to type in what they thought about the outcomes, what they learned, and everything as well too. So it wasn't a tricky process for us.
That's great to hear. Yeah, and if you can remember to take photos as you're going with the project, that always helps with the final report as well, of getting some nice photos in at the end. But yeah, to sum up, for I guess the top tips for the application will be to have a really clear project with great student involvement, to have a well itemized budget so that you've researched what you're going to be using the money for, and it's clear that it's value for money from us. And just remember that, yeah, there is a person reading your application on the other side, so they only know what you write, so try and keep that information as relevant and clear as possible. And that great level of student involvement should equal great educational outcomes. And if they fit under the focus areas, then the environmental outcomes just need to be really well articulated for your project, and that'll all equal a great project. The other thing is that you don't have to be starting from scratch to apply for the grant. So if you've got a vegetable garden that you want to add on to, if you want to add a worm farm to your veggie garden or expand to another bed or something like that, you can apply to add on to an existing project. And if you've had a grant before, a Woolworths Junior Landcare grant before, you may apply again, just so long as you've submitted your final report from the previous round. And we would really encourage you to have a look at those top 10 projects document to enhance your project, and you might find that there's some curriculum links or a bit of the work's already been done for you in those ones. So I think we've sort of covered most of what we were wanting to chat about for the Woolworths Junior Landcare Grant and how to apply for the grants. I'm really looking forward to reading the applications, and make sure that everyone who's applying checks out the juniorlandcare.org.au landing page, find out all the information that we've discussed today. Thanks so much for joining us, Sam, and thanks to everyone who's watched this session today. Just a reminder that the applications close on the 15th of March, and we can't wait to read your applications.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Ange. And yeah, I look forward to talking to my students about what we might apply for this year, and I'll look forward to hearing about successful grants that other schools or early learning centres get as well too.
Wonderful. Thanks, Sam.
Thanks.